Welcome to the Riverview Systems Group podcast series. Welcome to the next episode of the Riverview Systems Group podcast series. I am Tim Healy, your host, and today we welcome our Director of Design Services, Mr. Mike Lee.
Hello.
Mike wears many hats here at Riverview, including lead roles for our technical and design teams. Mike, great to have you here.
Well, it's great to be here.
Mike, how long have you been with Riverview? Tell us a little bit about that.
I started with Riverview probably almost 15 years ago. Started in our audio department and then became a draftsman, and then through some great mentorship through some of our other people, grew and took over the design services group.
Well, Mike, thanks once again for being with us. Let's go back a few years to the pandemic. So, Mike, we're in a unique situation. We were in a unique situation at the start of 2020. As like with the rest of the world, everything shut down for a bit. We were, however, able to open back up a few months later or so, in a bit of a different business model. And that was actually very successful for us. Can you share your thoughts on how we went into the months of shutdown and how we were able to pivot our structure and offer event support to clients who could not necessarily choose to have events in the traditional way?
Certainly. Right when everything shut down, it was a scary time for all of us. Scary time for everybody, and nobody really knew what was going to happen next. And as time progressed, after the initial shock, we reached a point with some of our clients where they realized they still, even though everybody was working from home, they still needed to communicate to their employees. They still needed to tell the strengths of their company and talk to everybody. And so one of the first outings we had in our shop, we set up a large remote control room in a truss structure we have. Very safe. Everyone was safe. Everyone was masked. Everything about that. And we set up and did a broadcast control with remote presenters, just like everybody did at that point. And the learnings out, we finished that, and that was kind of a one-time and done at that point because we were hopefully coming back. Everyone was coming back. Right. But when that didn't happen, we had another customer reach out to us for a sales kickoff because we are in the Silicon Valley. We are all of those things, and our relationships with our clients go long and deep. And
lucky for us, they're very close to us, whether CEOs or CTOs or whoever needs to come and be involved. They're kind of right around the corner.
Absolutely. We're within almost shouting distance to probably 80% of the leadership of Silicon Valley from our shop. And so that put us in a very great central location so people didn't need to travel.
Right.
And we were able to take some of our learnings from that first outing and then build on it. We realized the strength we had in the size of our warehouse with the 50 some odd thousand square feet we have back in the warehouse, and how we're in normal times, we can stage 8 or 10 trailers. Well, all of that is wide open space.
Right.
So we were able to take that where we would normally be shipping shows out, turn that into a very large LED studio, and then also leverage the office space that my team works out of, where we didn't necessarily need all of that space anymore.
Right.
And so we built out properly socially distanced and everything about it, properly air conditioned and everything. We put in a proper broadcast control room with high res and broadcast and cameras and remote caller station and playback and audio and everybody very much traditional, almost like you pulled a truck into our shop.
Well, and for folks that have not visited Riverview, we have a very unique situation where we have a massive warehouse structure, as you're talking about, but then the front office part, let's call it, is kind of divided into two sections. And one section is where we have all the design team, and there are a couple of meeting rooms that are independent, and then we have those kiosks. But then over on the other side, we have cubes as well for people that are remote workers or what have you. And we were turning those into breakouts as well, if I remember.
We did at least one show where we did where we followed the sun. So actually, it was the last show we did before shutdown. We were actually in Barcelona supporting a global program, just as the world started shutting down, funny enough. And the next year, we ended up doing, we would run, their headquarters was just down the street from us. And so we followed the sun. So we actually stood up three controlled broadcast systems that were with remote presenters and everything else, with a show caller and remote participants over on that other side, and were able to literally follow the sun because we were East Coast, West Coast, Asia Pac, Europe, and we were able to bring in time-shifted teams and follow the sun as far as that was concerned. Also leveraging the main studio's broadcast suite, because the CEO, who lives locally, would live participate with each one of those regions on our stage in our world. So we were able to link in those individual regional broadcasts with the main studio, and he could do his presentation, the big presentation, and then we still had the regional leaders call in and do that.
I remember that being a very long day.
Yeah, that was about 30 hours.
Exactly, yes. I mean, I remember coming in at 3 a.m, and then, it was during COVID, obviously, so we would start everything out by having the nurse do all the testing.
Yep.
So anybody that came walking into the office would have to come in the kitchen, and you would have a certain amount of time where you would get your nasal swab, and you would wait for your all clear. And once you got the all clear, you were able to go into the office. But in the one or two situations where somebody wasn't all clear, they went right back outside and off home they went. So, it was very controlled. But that was a really unique show. I can't think of, it almost was a benefit to be able to do it that way.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And we were able to take what first looked like a liability with the amount of square footage we have in the area that we are, and actually turn that into a benefit for us and our customers.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think as we iterated, we did 2 or 3 major iterations of the control room, streamlining it and adding the capabilities that we thought we needed. There were several instances with the configuration of the studio and the choices we made there where we had, I think one week we had 3 different clients do 3 very different looking programs, all with very minor turnover, very, very finished and polished presentations.
Right.
But you couldn't tell that necessarily all 3 of them were shot in the same studio.
Same studio. Yeah.
And we took some of the knowledge of supporting our clients in the field how can we do this in a very flexible way, give us the flexibility to dodge and weave, but have a very fixed infrastructure to get us there.
Right. Yeah, we were very lucky. You and I were just chatting a few minutes ago about how I remember a few weeks before the whole shutdown, there was a conversation in the office about, wow, we have so much space, do we really need it?
Yeah.
And then a week or 2 later, everything shuts down, and it was a blessing in the end.
It was absolutely a blessing in the end.
Yeah. And then, I also remember the amount of times that we would have Zoom. What is Zoom? All of a sudden, everybody's using Zoom
and Teams, and that was one of the other things that I was very proud of our configuration. We ended up having a caller station with 8 computers set up, integrated into our system with discrete returns and discrete sends and discrete audio. But because of the diversity of clients we have in their IT infrastructure, we very much couldn't commit to only being Zoom,
Right.
only being Teams, only being Chime, or we had to maintain flexibility in that, and that let us take whatever the client needed
Right.
and be able to run with it without any reconfiguration.
We learned a lot going through that.
We absolutely did.
Yeah. And then when we came out of it, we saw kind of a hybrid.
A lot more hybrid, and a lot more priority of the broadcast environment.
Right.
Of the broadcast element of the live show, because if we think back to the before times, the webcast was just something that happened. No one actually paid attention to it beyond making sure it worked and everything was there. But that attendee experience of the broadcast wasn't primary. So we've definitely seen, even as we've come back and our customers have realized the strength of that broadcast element of the show.
Right.
And we have the privilege to support several companies with their all hands solutions, and where we might only have 1,000 people in the room, but there's tens, if not 100,000 people on the broadcast.
Right.
And it has made us refocus some of the priorities and the attention paid to things. We've always been very proud of the way our shows look on camera.
Right.
But now the priority of the engagement with the audience, the respect for that, I think is, and then also allowing the flexibility of remote presenters in live environments.
I remember a couple of shows where I think we weren't necessarily here. I think it was one of the first times we were on site at a campus, and we were testing the waters. I think there was maybe 12, 15 remote callers, and we didn't know if it was going to
work.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah.
And that was an entirely different platform that we had to leverage.
Yes, it was.
But I think even now there are, very much elements to the production that has to involve remote opinions. Comms people can't necessarily travel. The leadership support can't necessarily travel to site or need to participate in rehearsals. And so having to leverage the coordination call.
Right.
And let alone, we now have to. Now, some of the clients we will bring in a leader that's talking to their team members in Atlanta while we're in Mountain View.
Right.
Or San Diego and Mountain View in Atlanta, and trying to bring all these domestic integration. And it really allows our clients to have a diverse production and engage more of their employees or audience where they are, and leverage that sort of efficiency in message.
The other thing that was amazing was the studio, the large curved LED wall. How big was that?
It was 12 and a half meters wide.
Okay.
Because it's metric and it's LED. So
what's that? 90 feet or something?
No, not even that much.
Not even that much. But it was big.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a large wall to the point of where there were a couple of times where we would have a broadcast of a CFO, whoever, up on stage, and the person watching on their computer screen didn't realize that they were standing in a studio. They thought they were standing somewhere else. The clarity and
was
amazing.
We didn't necessarily lean into pretending we were somewhere else.
Sure, yeah.
That was a very distinct decision we made very early. because the volume, the virtual production that some companies took on, we very explicitly chose not to go that way. Not to try and do full immersion, because as we were looking at it, we were looking at the challenges in content production.
Of course.
And that might be a hindrance to our ability to iterate and move quickly.
And cost as well.
And the cost associated with it.
Absolutely.
So even though we had the very dramatic curved LED wall that we had installed, that was still able to be built in a PowerPoint deck.
Right.
It wasn't some boutique resolution and processing. We very purposefully chose the resolution and the aspect ratio to keep it in something normal and reasonable.
Right.
So that allowed, in many cases, we eventually got our workflow to the point where the clients could do their pre-production with our templates, come in first thing in the morning, we'd be rolling tape by coffee,
Right.
and we'd have a finished product before afternoon coffee.
It's amazing.
And we were able to maintain that sort of velocity and cost savings for our clients.
Right.
Because eventually we reached a day rate for the studio, and many times we would have 3 or 4 in a week.
Right.
Where we would just be churning through, cleaning and everything between.
Right.
But we were able to churn and be able to do very bespoke productions for all of these clients, but still keep it grounded, still keep it optimized for not only the end product, but also the pre-production.
Well, and I think that's one of the really magical things about what made it work was the route we chose kept it at a certain level that made it so everybody was cutting costs. They had to.
Yeah.
So somebody isn't going to come and spend the same amount of money on a production as they were a year before that. So being able to say, hey, we can give you this, and you're only going to pay a portion of what you normally would be spending because of this. And
much to the chagrin of our financial people.
Of course. But you know what? The hats off to our folks, the executive team and the owners and financial team that kept everything, kept the lights on. It was almost miraculous and
well, and that is not a unique environment that we were in.
No, not at all. Not at all. But it was kind of a pleasant surprise when you would hear feedback from the clients' viewers saying, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize you were in a studio. I thought you were, somewhere in the Alps or whatever." Because the quality of some of those images were just amazing.
It was some of the immersion we could achieve for the lack of a better term, a gag.
Right. It's impressive.
It was impressive.
Very impressive. So.
And we also had the capability to integrate with other studios.
Right.
Many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
With some of our international clients and some of the mergers and acquisitions that happened during COVID, we were able to support local leadership in a global presentation with people in Germany, people in the UK. We were able to do that several times. And at one point, we built basically an office in our side studio, in our Studio B area, that we set up basically what almost a picture mirror of the gentleman's office.
Right.
That to integrate into a larger conversation. And yeah, there was a little bit of theater magic in that, but we were able to up-level what he could have done at home with the entire back-end infrastructure we had.
Well, it was definitely a moment in time, and we have all moved past that. But you know what? We learned a lot of things.
We did.
Going through all of that. So thank you for your insight and taking a few moments here to look back in those days. And We'll look forward to having you back on again soon, Mike. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.